What's good, everyone? In today's video, we're going to cover two news stories that broke on Monday night, July 28th, within about an hour of each other. First, while the Chicago Cubs were in Milwaukee to play the Brewers, news of the death of Cubs Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg broke. Right around that same time, reports of a mass shooting started rolling in from New York City, where a man who formerly played high school football reportedly entered the building, murdering 4 people in an attack on the NFL headquarters before killing himself. In this video, we'll explain how both of these news stories are connected by the same numerology, and it's all connected to pi, the mathematics of the circle, and the number 666. So first, Ryne Sandberg dies on July 28th. That same night, a gunman entered 345 Park Avenue, which houses the NFL headquarters, with the intent of murdering NFL executives. He fell short of his goal, as he didn't even know which elevator to take upstairs. But in this video, we're going to explore how this is all connected to pi. Now, we start with the date, Monday, July 28th. Notice how this date falls 314 days after September 17th. Well, September 17th is the founding date of the National Football League, founded all the way back in 1920. So Monday was 314 days after the NFL's anniversary. If you include the end date, September 18th is also a span of 314 days before July 28th. And September 18th is the birthday of Hall of Famer Ryne Sandberg. But there's actually more. If you move forward 314 days from July 28th, you arrive at the date June 7th. June 7th is the date 20 years ago that football player Terry Long reportedly committed suicide by drinking a bottle of antifreeze. And what does Terry Long have to do with this? Well, in the shooting, this guy Shane Tamura reportedly left behind a suicide note. And in that note, it mentioned former NFL player Terry Long, who died by suicide. Now, Terry Long is one of a number of former NFL players who have been diagnosed with a disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, which is the result of repetitive concussions, which no doubt many NFL players suffer on a regular basis. Now, as always, the code of pi 314. This connects directly to the number 666. Notice how the 314th prime number is 2083. This brings us to the language of Gematria, where every letter is assigned a number. And the cipher you see on your screen, Latin Gematria, is, as I say in every video, what I believe to be the most important, as it holds many of the geometric secrets of the language. When you write out the number 666, it sums to 2083, which is the 314th prime number. But of course, it runs even deeper than this, because pi resolves the mathematics of the circle, which equals 666 in that same cipher, much like mathematical perfection. Ryne Sandberg wore number 23 on his jersey for the entirety of his career with the Cubs. You see this on his back there, the number 23. Well, if you divide 2 by 3, you'll notice you get a result of 0.666 repeating. And this is part of the code that's been connected to Chicago athletes who have been dying. Think about Steve Mongo McMichael, Bobby Jenks. You'll find links in the description below to videos on both of those athletes. And this is the number we've been talking about in connection with Chicago since even before the death of Pope Francis. Francis was born exactly 314 months before Chicago athlete Michael Jordan. And of course, this was all synced up to the Pi Day eclipse on 3/14 earlier this year. So it's no coincidence, of course, that after Francis dies, he is replaced by Pope Leo. And of course, Pope Leo was born in the Chicagoland area. So we'll look at how this is connected to the Catholic Church as well. Don't forget that Catholic Church sums to 496 in Latin Gematria. Well, in the standard method, which uses the current 26-letter alphabet, Chicago Cubs also equals 496. But it's not just that Ryne Sandberg wears number 23. The shooter in the story from New York was reportedly from Las Vegas. And notice how Las Vegas equals 23 in reduction as well. So we'll talk about this rampage at the NFL headquarters in the second part of this video, but first I want to touch on some of the numerology with Ryne Sandberg, who has reportedly passed away from cancer. Now, Ryne Sandberg spent almost his entire career with the Chicago Cubs. However, he first debuted the previous year with the Philadelphia Phillies. And remember, Philadelphia gets its name from the book of Revelation, which also reveals the number of the beast as 666. And yeah, shout out to the chat. Former Cubs coach Dick Joran also passed away earlier this year. And I do have a video on him. You can find that on my channel, talking about how it's all connected to the Skull and Bones Code. And that is a heavy element of the shooting in New York as well. So Ryne Sandberg was a pretty decent MLB player. However, in 1984, he really broke through. In the the 9th and 10th innings of a game back in 1984, Ryne Sandberg hit back-to-back game-tying home runs, and the Cubs would go on to win. This ended up being called the Sandberg game, the game that he was best known for. In the standard alphabetic order, the name Ryne Sandberg equals 132. The Ryne Sandberg game occurred on a date with primary numerology of 132. 6 plus 23 plus 19 plus 84. In Latin Gematria, the disease cancer also equals 132. Now, back in the year 2016, the Cubs famously broke a 108-year curse to win the World Series. The date that they played Game 7 of that World Series, the final game, was 132 days after the anniversary of the Sandberg game. The number 666, also with reduction gematria of 132. Now, the Cubs World Series is an important element to this. Again, it was a 108-year curse broken by the city. The nation's tallest building for many decades stood in Chicago. and it's 108 stories tall. This is a huge number connected to the sport of baseball. Each baseball is made up of 108 double stitches. And whether you write out Major League, Baseball, or MLB, they all have Gematria of 18, which is the number of batters in a game. Well, if you measure from the date that the Cubs won the World Series in 2016 to the death of Ryne Sandberg, we find that he died exactly 108 lunar phases after that game. A lunar phase is a measurement of the moon based on its phases. Every 29.5 days is one phase. And exactly 108 moons after the 108-year curse is broken, Rhino dies. Rhino, the nickname of Ryne Sandberg. In reduction, Rhino equals 18. So does Cubs. Chicago Cubs also 180. And the Cubs were playing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the time the news of his death broke. Milwaukee, Wisconsin equals 108. Mathematics of the circle, also another important 108. And of course, the number 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. But let's look again at the date of his passing. July 28th also had numerology of both 26 and 44. And look at all of the 26s in Gematria. Cancer, Chicago Cubs 206, Chicago, Illinois 260. The word sacrifice is 206. 666 is the number of the beast, which equals 26. Both the circle and circle also equal 260 in various methods of Gematria. As for the number 44, in ordinal, cancer, kill, chemo, all 44. The disease often caused by cigarettes, which is 44 in reduction. Now, on the date that Ryne Sandberg died, the Chicago Cubs lost to the Milwaukee Brewers, dropping their 44th game of the season, matching the date numerology and the numbers of the disease that killed their Hall of Famer. You may also notice that the Cubs stayed on 62 wins. Both Chicago Cubs and sacrifice equals 62. Both of these phrases also equal 46. And remember, Ryne Sandberg's first team was the Philadelphia Phillies. And on the same date that the Cubs lost to the Brewers, the 28th, the Phillies were playing the other team from Chicago, the White Sox, the team that Pope Leo is a fan of. And you have to appreciate that the score here was 6-2, right? Matching Chicago Cubs and the number of their wins. Well, as for the 46 here, the Phillies lost their 46th game of the season against Chicago on the night of Sandberg's death. Chicago and the Beast both also equal 46, in addition to Cubs and sacrifice. Sandberg's death fell 81 days after the election of the new pope, who is from the city of Chicago. His nickname Rhino equals 81. Chicago equals 81 in Latin, and the Cubs were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which equals 81. MLB also 81 and 810. Now remember, just recently, I did a video on the death of another Chicago baseball player, Bobby Jenks, the man who was on the mound when the White Sox won the 2005 World Series. Well, in that same year, 2005, Ryne Sandberg was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And then he died just one day after this year's Hall of Fame class was inducted. So after the year 2005, with all of these successes, both men are now dead in the year 25. Ryne Sandberg died 25 days into the 250th year of the United States. And on that date, Pope Leo was 25,520 days old. Well, notice how the word Pope equals 25 and 52 in the standard reduction and ordinal ciphers, matching his age for Sandberg's death. In fact, the word death also sums to 25 and 52. But of course, 25 is also the ordinal gematria of the word pi. And remember, Bobby Jenks, the White Sox pitcher, was born on Pi Day, March 14th. Sandberg started his career in Philadelphia, which equals 205. And don't forget, Philadelphia is connected to the Pope as well, because in 2015, the Pope left the United States from the city of Philadelphia. And that was just after Ryne Sandberg turned 56 years old, which matches Pope. Pope Leo was elected 233 days after Ryne Sandberg's birthday. And that's interesting because when the Cubs won the World Series, these are the same digits in Pope Leo's age, 330 days. The Sandberg game was on June 23rd, which is 233 days after the anniversary of the Cubs championship. And this 233 is the gematria of the circle, which pi resolves the mathematics for. The name Ryne D. Sandberg, his full name, and his last name both have matching 146 gematria with Leo the 14th, as well as 603 Well, this is very similar to the number of days between their births, 1,466 days. 146 is also the gematria of Jesus Christ, whom Catholics believe the Pope is closer to than any other human. Well, Jesus Christ also equals 151. And look at how old Pope Leo was for the Sandberg game in 1984, 10,510 days old. Sandberg died 15,010 days after that same game. These are similar digits found in his birth numerology, 105 and 51. And you gotta admit, it's pretty interesting that I'm talking about Ryne Sandberg. Well, my last video is about Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler's son in this movie is played by a pro wrestler who once wrestled as a guy named Sandy Bunker. So there's this sand theme, apparently, trending in the news lately. So there's a couple connections to that, but what I want to look at is how Ryne Sandberg is connected to the number of the beast and the mathematics of the circle. Because don't forget, the 60606 zip code belongs to the city of Chicago, and specifically the Willis Tower. In reduction gematria, Ryne Sandberg equals 60 and 66. He died 6 weeks and 6 days before the Pope's birthday. He had a 66 in his age when the Cubs won the World Series. This is essentially shorthand for the number of the beast. Here is wisdom, number of a man, number of the beast, all 66. Ryne Sandberg was 65 years, 313 days old when he died. Well, 313 is the ordinal value of 636, which is how the number of the beast appears in the Bible. Now, we'll get to more on that in a second, but consider how the Cubs were playing the Brewers when Sandberg died. Brewers equals 90 and 99 in upside down 666. And it was the city of Milwaukee where the film Major League was shot. Major League equals 999 in Latin. This is very similar to the moon, which equals 90 and 99. Sandberg died on the date leaving 156 days in the year. And in the alphabetic order, 666 and 666 both equal 156. So we mentioned that Sandberg died 314 days after his birthday with the end date included. In fact, in the year 1984, when he had the Sandberg game, his batting average was .314. The name Ryne D. Sandberg matches 3.14. And those same digits were found in his death numerology as well. But check this out. This is where things get completely nuts. The number 314 is very mystically connected to 227. If you're on a Windows keyboard, Alt 227 gives you the pi symbol. This is because on a calculator, 22 divided by 7 is the smallest equation you can use to get the first 3 digits of pi. And in Gematria, 22 divided by 7 equals 314. Consider how there's 360 degrees in a circle, which is another 227. In the movie Life of Pi, Pi Patel is stranded for 227 days. Well, in this game that the Cubs played the Brewers against, or against the Brewers, the game during which Sandberg's death was announced, the Brewers got their 227th all-time win against the Chicago Cubs. The Sandberg game was 2 months and 27 days before Ryne Sandberg's birthday. It was also 7 months and 22 days after the date the Cubs won the World Series, November 2nd. Now, the book Life of Pi was first published on the date September 11th, 2001. And this is no coincidence because the September 11th attacks were completely connected to the numerology of pi. When you write out the date, September the 11th, it equals 227. And if you measure from the 9/11 attacks to the death of Ryne Sandberg, you get a span of 8,722 days. So this explains why there was a shooting in New York City on the same day. More on that in a little bit. But first I want to point out that Ryne Sandberg was born a span of 4 years and 4 days after the new pope. And the book of Revelation has 404 verses. American Pope equals 404, and the first American Pope was born during Brown Lunation 404. The number of the beast is first mentioned in the 229th verse of Revelation. The name Sandberg equals 229. This is the 50th prime number. And not only does the word circle equal 50, but the letter that's a circle, O, is worth 50 in multiple major forms of gematria, Latin and Satanic. When the Cubs won the World Series, they lifted the trophy on a date with primary numerology of 50. And look at the Brown lunation number, 1161. Very similar to the digits in the 9/11 attacks. The date of Sandberg's death also had numerology of 80, which matches the Beast in ordinal and Fibonacci. Beast is also 88, which is the meridian that splits the Chicagoland area. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about how a lot of these same numbers appeared in the shooting at New York City, the deadliest since the 9/11 attacks. And of course, it occurred at the NFL headquarters building, 345 Park Avenue. And wait until you see how this address number is coded into this story. So first, let's start out with the overarching riddle here. Now, the gunman, Shane Tamura, left a suicide note after the shooting, saying something very mysterious and largely irreverent. It said, "Terry Long football gave me CTE and caused me to drink a gallon of antifreeze." Well, that's how Terry Long died. The former Pittsburgh Steeler spent his entire career with the Steelers. And just think of the name Terry Long. This stood out to me right away, especially since he played for the Steelers. Because the Steelers were led to 4 different Super Bowl championships by a quarterback named Terry. And for the last 31 years, Terry has been working alongside a guy named Long on Fox NFL Sunday every week. So here's a picture of Terry and Long. Well, Terry Bradshaw was born exactly 11 years, 18 weeks before Howie Long, his broadcast partner. Using triangular numbers, the word concussion equals 1118. Now, the date 1118 is also the 322nd day of the year, which is a skull and bones number. More on that soon. But this stands out because, Terry Long played for the Steelers. Terry Bradshaw played for the Steelers. So did the center Mike Webster. This is the guy who snapped the ball to Terry Bradshaw throughout their Super Bowl runs in the 70s. And Mike Webster was a focus of the 2015 film Concussion, starring famous actor Will Smith, which is about the disease CTE. This shooting fell 132 days after Mike Webster's birthday. And 132 is the ordinal gematria of the word concussion. And just think about how this shooting unfolded just as news of the death of Ryne Sandberg was breaking. Once again, Ryne Sandberg equals 132. So this Terry Long character, who died back in 2005, the same year, by the way, that Sandberg was inducted into the Hall of Fame. If Terry Long was still alive, he would have been exactly 3,445 weeks old for the mass shooting at 345 Park Avenue. Now, there's actually a list of football players who have been diagnosed with CTE. And guess how many have been diagnosed so far? Well, if you guessed 345, winner, winner, chicken dinner. What are the odds of this? 345 players have been diagnosed with CTE by the time that there was a mass shooting in response to the concussion crisis at 345 Park Avenue? Now, the movie Concussion once again starred actor Will Smith, who used to be an A-lister, but he's had a little bit of a fall from grace, you could say. Well, back in the year 2016, Will Smith accepted the Generation Award at the MTV Movie Awards. This is essentially like a Lifetime Achievement Award from MTV. And the date of this acceptance was April 9th of 2016. Well, on that same exact day, April 9th of 2016, a former NFL Super Bowl champion named Will Smith died, allegedly killed in a road rage incident. And look how old the football player Will Smith was for the movie Concussion. He was 34 years and 5 months old when that movie came out. Are you kidding me? 345 again. Monday's shooting unfolded 7 months and 3 days after the release date of Concussion, which was Christmas. It was also 7 weeks and 3 days after the anniversary of Terry Long's death. To cement this connection, actor Will Smith was exactly 703 lunar phases old. This building is even located on the 73rd Western Meridian. And the name of the shooter was Shane Devon Tamura, which equals 73. We also need to talk a little bit about how this is synced up to a guy named Walter Camp, a.k.a. the father of American football, a graduate of Yale, a member of the Skull and Bones Secret Society, and essentially the man that invented the current version of American football. Notice how he died on the 73rd day of the year. The word sacrifice and the phrase ritual sacrifice both equal 73. But what about this? Ritual sacrifice equals 616. The shooter was born 16 years, 6 months, and 16 days after the football player Will Smith. And the shooting was 166 years and 16 weeks after Walter Camp was born, and 66 years and 160 days after Roger Goodell was born. Now, Roger Goodell is, of course, the NFL's commissioner, and no doubt the primary target of Shane Tamura, at least I believe, based on the bizarre details that we did get. There's a couple of details connecting Goodell to this story. Again, all of these posts are linked down in the description if you want to see more. But I want to touch on these numbers, especially 121. The football player Will Smith, his full name has Gematria of 121. And you got to appreciate how he is a third, whereas the actor Will Smith is a second. So the football player's name sums to 121. The actor was born on a date with 121 numerology. His movie Concussion came out 10 years, 201 days after the death of Terry Long. Monday's shooting was 1 month and 21 days after the anniversary of Terry's death. And it was 1 month and 21 days before the anniversary of the NFL's founding. The name of the shooter, Shane Tamura, equals 121 in the alphabetic order, matching blood sacrifice. The 121st prime number is 661. And if Terry Long was still alive, he would have been exactly 66 years and 1 week old. The 661 is also found in the number of days from the death of Walter Camp. Monday's shooting was also 20 years and 51 days after Terry Long died. The shooter, Shane Devon Tamura, sums to 251 in reverse, which is also the value of ritual sacrifice. This is the 54th prime number, and the shooting occurred 500 weeks and 4 days after the release of the movie Concussion, also 5 weeks and 4 days before the first NFL game of the season. But once again, just like the Ryne Sandberg story, this all connects to the number of the beast. Notice how well the football player's name lines up with 666 in Gematria. In fact, wrong elevator sums to the same as 666, which was a big detail in this story, right? He took the wrong elevator to get to the NFL offices. God, imagine being so dumb that not only do you commit a mass shooting, but you also have no idea how to get to the place you want to attack. You know, and if it's true that this guy was having mental problems, then I guess you gotta kind of feel bad for him, except for the fact that he killed other people. But just like all of these bizarre shootings, there's just details that make absolutely no sense. And that's what we see here. I mean, this guy never played in the NFL. Yeah, you guys understand how weird it is. Now, the football player Will Smith was born 666 weeks or 4,666 days after the actor Will Smith. The former Saints lineman was born 6,656 days before the shooter. The actor was born 9 years and 66 days after the football player Terry Long. And Terry Long would have been 66 years and 6 days old 1 day before the shooting. Now again, this also on the date leaving 156 days in the year, we saw how this connects to 666. But this is also a significant eclipse number. Eclipses always occur 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases apart, and the Hebrew word for eclipse equals 156. Eclipse the sun, 156 in English. The name of the shooter, Shane Tamura, 1056. Shane Devon Tamura, 1506. Wrong elevator, 1056. He was attacking Goodell in New York, New York, which both equal 156. The Concussion movie came out 156 years after Walter Camp was born. But remember, the number 156 is shorthand for 9/11. This is both the 119th composite number, and 9/11 is the 156th prime number. And just look at all of these 9/11 alignments. This shooting was 9 years, 110 days after Will Smith, the football player, died. It was 100 years and 19 weeks after Walter Camp died. 9/11 upside down is 116. The shooting was exactly 1 year, 16 weeks after the Great American Eclipse, and 1 year and 16 days before the next total eclipse. The shooting was also 116 days after the opening date of the Twin Towers, April 4th. This just goes on and on, doesn't it? Terry Long was born 100 years, 106 days after Walter Camp, who died at 901 lunar phases in 1 day before Shane Tamura was born. The Concussion movie came out 9 months, 11 days after the date Camp died. The shooter was born 116 days after Will Smith's birthday. And Will Smith was born 1 month and 19 days after construction began on the World Trade Center. So yes, this research gets exhausting, because it's like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different 911, 116 measurements here. So finally, let's look at how this is all connected to skull and bones and the mathematics of the circle, concepts with which both connect to the number 666. First, just look at the big pie alignments for the NFL here. The most recent Super Bowl was played on the date 2/9 of 25. And the word pi equals 29 and 25. Now we get a shooting on the 209th day of 25, which was 169 days after the Super Bowl, matching NFL headquarters 169. The disease at the center of this story is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which equals 325. Well, 325 is the 25th triangular number. Again, we're in the year 25. Pi equals 25. Walter Camp, the founder of American football, look at this. He died on Pi Day in the year 25. Yale University equals 205. Terry Long dies in the year 2005. The NFL was exactly 2005 weeks old when Roger Goodell was born. And now we get this shooter. Shane is 25. Tamura is 250. And the shooting was 2 years and 5 days before the 2027 total eclipse. Total eclipse equals 227 in Hebrew. And don't forget, 227 was a big number in the death of Ryne Sandberg. All syncing back to pi. Now, pi also equals 29. Shane, 29. Tamura, 290. Goodell, 29. Shane Tamura was born exactly 2009 weeks after Terry Long, who, again, is the player that he mentioned in his suicide note. Yale University equals 2009. The home of Skull and Bones. So we talked about a couple of these pi connections. Also the 88 from Ryne Sandberg. You know, the Cubs on the 88th meridian. Shane equals 88. Tamura equals 88. So does Goodell's full name. Walter Camp had birth numerology of 88 as well. But if things weren't undeniable enough already, wait till you see the Skull and Bones eclipse code. Now, the first two numbers with ordinal gematria of 314 are 223 and 322. And of course, 322, the number of skull and crossbones, which equals 223. Now, back in the year 2023, Yale University, home of Skull and Bones, turned 322 years old, which, once again, is an obvious element of design. Well, this special anniversary occurred during Brown Lunation 1246. And when you write out 1246, it equals 223. Well, this mass shooting in New York City was exactly 1,246 weeks after the 9/11 attacks in New York City. So what if we measure from this special anniversary date, October 9th of 2023, to the date of Monday's events. The shooting was 1 year, 9 months, and 20 days after Yale's anniversary. This gives us the digits 1920. The National Football League was founded in the year 1920. Now, in numerology, this represents the number 192. Yale Skull and Bones equals 192, so does Secret Society and Skull and Bones with the ampersand. The founder of American football, Walter Chauncey Camp, equals 192. And notice how this same measurement is also exactly 94 weeks. The name Camp equals 94. So does the phrase Secret Society. NFL equals 192 in Sumerian, like the year the company was established. And also, the date 19/2 is the birthday of the current NFL commissioner. And this all happened the same day Ryne Sandberg died. Ryne Sandberg equals 192. The words second and eclipse both equal 192. And again, back in 2024, we had the second of the Skull and Bones eclipses over the United States. Remember, Yale University was founded in perfect accordance with these two American X eclipses. Yale turned 322 years old exactly 82 sidereal months after the first eclipse, which was exactly 82 lunar phases before the second eclipse. Monday's shooting was 15 months and 20 days after the second eclipse. This number stood out immediately because the shooter was 10,052 days old for his rampage, and his name, Shane Tamura, equals 1,052. The guy mentioned in his suicide note was born 152 days after the guy he was attacking, Roger Goodell. I mean, what are the odds again? How many times do I have to ask? And finally, just to point out how connected Will Smith is to this. Skull and Bones equals 572, which also matches the name Smith. But Smith also equals 322, the Skull and Bones number. In fact, his full name, Willard Carroll Smith II, equals 322 reverse. And 245, which is Skull and Bones Society. On Monday, Will Smith, his age ended in 760 days. Well, of course, Skull and Bones, Secret Society both equal 76. The NFL was officially formed exact two topics by virtue of occurring within very close proximity to each other, time-wise anyways, not location, of course. Share a slew of the same numbers, and what do you know? They just happen to be the same numbers that I spend so much time talking about on this channel. The 666 code, right? Pi. The Skull and Bones numerology. It's so consistent. Like, it's never a wonder why this type of work is suppressed. Especially my channel. And, well, I'm not going to complain more about YouTube and all that. They haven't given me a strike in a really long time, so while they're not exactly spreading my work, they haven't really been squashing it lately either. Ultimately, I have faith that everyone who needs to find this type of stuff will, whether it's through my channel, whether it's through someone else's. We're all speaking on our own little wavelength here, and I think the more people who send those wavelengths out, the more likely it is that people can be helped from finding those. So Once again, check the links in the description below if you want to see more related content, particularly towards the demise of other Chicago athletes, which has been a theme this year since the new pope is from the city of Chicago. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this video. Thanks again. Peace, love, God bless, and we will talk to you all soon. See ya.